Welcome to This Week in South Carolina. I'm Gavin Jackson. It's been a busy week in the state, with the governor reopening restaurants this week, announcing that close contact businesses can reopen next week, and the legislature came back to tie up some loose ends. We have the latest from this week. Lawmakers returned to Columbia for the first time since April 8th and spent their last day of regular session passing critical bills Tuesday, including the continuing resolution that will keep the state funded at current levels in the new fiscal year starting July 1st. It also includes more money for COVID-19 response and to safeguard elections. House Budget Committee Chairman Merle Smith said budget cuts are unlikely thanks to previously strong growth.
At this point, we're still ahead of our projections, or still ahead of the revenue here. We have increased revenue from last fiscal year. It's still being predicted by the Board of Economic Advisors, and as you may know, they took the worst case scenario of South Carolina being shut down for 3 months, and so we still see a positive growth in our budget, and as long as we have some minimal to positive growth in the budget, then we should not have to endure those budget cuts and furloughing state employees, but it's all up to how this economy recovers.
House and Senate lawmakers came together to expand absentee voting for the primaries as well. But that's just for the primaries, whereas an expanded definition of physically disabled, one of several reasons someone could request an absentee ballot, was at the center of a state Supreme Court argument Tuesday and could have ramifications for November. Justices heard arguments remotely hours before lawmakers voted. Bruce Spiva for Democratic groups said that the threat of contracting and transmitting the virus qualifies as a disability. Rob Tyson, representing the state Republican Party, said Democrats sought to use the pandemic to rewrite election law. And Grayson Lambert for the Election Commission sided with the point Chief Justice Donald Beatty made.
Well, it appears to me that your position then is in line with the Attorney General's. That is, that anyone who's at high risk of contracting the virus or having some detrimental impact as a result of having contacted someone with the virus would be eligible for an absentee ballot.
I think that's right, Your Honor. Yes, sir. I think the Attorney General and the Election Commission agree in that interpretation.
While the case will be settled soon, 2 more suits are in federal court, and the governor has already signed the bill extending primary absentee voting to every registered voter. And joining me now is Representative D-Bamberg. He's a Democratic representative in the town of Bamberg, and he's also a lawyer in the area who's been involved in several high-profile cases, including the Walter Scott shooting in 2015. Representative Bamberg, thanks for being back.
Thank you for having me.
So, Justin, I want to talk about several things that happened this week, but first, I think really top of mind has been that shooting with Ahmaud Arbery down there in Brunswick, Georgia, nearby Georgia. This is something that has really just blown up on the national scene, and of course, it's regional here to us too. Obviously, it didn't happen in South Carolina, but it's just something that really has hit a nerve, I feel like, in South Carolina. And I want to get your thoughts on this matter because it has been such a big case. It happened back in February. Obviously, things have come to light recently. I want to get your thoughts on what it was like when you first heard about this case and just your perspective on how this case has been handled so far.
Well, yeah, the shooting incident with Ahmaud is just a terrible tragedy. It is unnecessary. I've actually been tracking that particular case since it happened. I'm good friends with some people down in Georgia in the legal arena, and a few of them have been pushing this matter since the day it happened. You know, when you see that, it reminds you of darker days in American history, particularly here in the South. You know, this young man and what he was doing beforehand, you know, there are still some questions surrounding that. But one thing is clear, he did not, you know, really break any laws. He was kind of minding his own business. And this is what happens when citizens overstep. You know, they rush to judgment on somebody, whether it be inherent prejudice against them, whether it be they're just super overprotective over their neighborhood, whichever the case. But there was no reason for the McMichaels to, A, chase this man down, B, to arm themselves the way they were as if they were going to fight some bank robber, and C, definitely no reason to murder him in the fashion that they did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're talking about Gregory McMichael and his son Travis, who have been charged with felony murder and aggravated assault. Only after the case came to the national spotlight, you know, and the state authorities did this last week. What does that say about how things are going on the ground there when you look at criminal justice and law enforcement in that area?
Well, quite frankly, it mirrors what so many people have to deal with every day. I mean, we've seen it, right? If you look, for example, to right here in South Carolina, when Walter Scott was shot, you had one narrative painted. Some people didn't believe it. And the question still arises to this day, what would have happened if Faye and Santana had not been there to film it? When this initially happened, and the more details that come to light with regards to government action in that case, the more devastating of a blow it becomes to the system of criminal justice. Not just there, but anywhere. All of the same facts that we all know now were known to the people empowered to make the decision to arrest or not. And you find out that this person is connected to this person, that this person worked for that person. And all over America, people are crying out to just be treated fairly. And if something happens to them or a loved one, to have it looked at genuinely. Was it criminal or was it not? Who you are shouldn't matter. And in this particular instance, if it wasn't for the rallying cries of the general public, if it wasn't for this hitting national media and the pressure it put on the decision makers down there, then McMichaels would still be walking free.
And what does that say about where we are in 2020?
The only thing that has consistently moved forward is the date, right? And all we have to do is, look to the recent movement here in South Carolina with regards to the citizens arrest statute. Right, and if you look at the original version of that bill as it is on the books, it was originally enacted in 1866, right? And I believe it was amended once in the 1960s. So you have people who operate both in the criminal justice system and outside of it in a state of mind that very much resembles the 1960 civil rights era or earlier. And that's a very big problem, Now, I will say this. I love seeing citizens come together to rally behind a massive injustice. And what we've seen with Ahmaud Arbery is it's not just young black people standing up. It's not just older black folks who lived through the civil rights era. You've got white people, black people, rich people, poor people. Hell, the homeowner whose home Michael said, Ahmaud was in there doing burglarizing or whatever. Even he himself has said, oh, absolutely no, they went too far. Mm-hmm. And that's how we're going to change the system. It starts with empowering the public, the press doing their job by reporting facts accurately, and everyone collectively pushing to make society better for all of us.
Yeah, you're referencing there that homeowner who had the security footage of Arbery walking around the construction site of the home site, basically, and not doing anything, just checking things out and then just running on his way. And again, the McMichaels asserting that there had been, break-ins in the area. There's history from police records that show there have not been any break-ins. Even still, you're talking about, this citizens arrest law and empowering these people. I know George McMichael was a former police officer, but still, that doesn't really give you the ability to perhaps go and hunt someone down, as it appeared to have happened, and brandish a weapon for something that you can't even prove. I mean, it's suspicion plus an empowering law equals some sort of validation. At least that's what you've seen with some of the prosecutorial language coming out from those offices down there.
Absolutely. Even if you look to, for example, the shooting of Brandon Flood in Florence, South Carolina, right? And if you remember back, there you had a citizen who his full-time day job was to be a pharmacist, but he went through the South Carolina Constable program, and all of a sudden you take someone who wants to be super cop, empower them via state law, and Brandon Flood ends up getting filled with bullets when the trained and certified law enforcement officers on scene never even unholstered their weapons, right? So this is not the old days, right? And if you think back, to earlier days in South Carolina and other parts of the country, law enforcement, you might have one sheriff and one deputy, to police an entire county, for example. And they needed citizens' help, right? Back then, citizens also took control of their own communities in that regard. Now, we all know in the South, some people were getting policed a lot harder than others, but nonetheless, there was a role there for citizens to play in law enforcement. If you fast forward now to 2020, we have a police state. We have a militarized federal law enforcement system here. We don't need citizens acting like super law enforcement officers. Times have changed, the laws have not, right? And if we don't change the laws, how are we going to stop these things from happening?
And it's interesting because you look at one of the prosecutors that was originally assigned to this case. There have been 4 now. George Barnhill said in an April 2nd letter that it appears their intent was to stop and hold this criminal suspect until law enforcement arrived. Under Georgia law, this is perfectly legal. But Barnhill concluded in this memo that given the fact that Arbery initiated the fight at the point Arbery grabbed the shotgun, under Georgia law, McMichael was allowed to use deadly force to protect himself. So again, another, now you're talking about citizen's arrest, multiply it by stand your ground law. Do you think there needs to be some changes? I mean, are you worried that something like this could again happen in South Carolina? Obviously, we can talk about Walter Scott in a minute, different situation, but when you look at these laws, what do you think that could happen here or in many states across the country?
We have seen rogue citizens in Florida with Trayvon Martin, and he was a child. We've seen it in Georgia. We've seen it in North Carolina. For example, with a case I was involved in, the killing of Corrin Thomas by an individual named Chad Copley, who's now serving life in prison for murdering an innocent 20-year-old. It's frustrating, right, to see not just these things happen, but one of the biggest frustrations is what you referenced, right? We have government officials, in that instance a DA, who instead of looking at the situation as law enforcement should, is there probable cause to make an arrest? It's like he turned defense lawyer. And I have never in my life seen a district attorney draft a letter like that while simultaneously saying, I have a conflict and I can't be involved and I'm recusing myself. Mm-hmm. It's like, instead of wearing his hat as protecting the interests of the state and the citizens, he turned into a lawyer for the McMichaels. And I think that there are going to be some bar ethical issues, not just for him, but for some of the other prosecutors down there in Georgia who took certain pretty shady actions. But that's where government's got to step in. We need more accountability with regards to the individuals who are reviewing these cases. Because right now, we've seen various instances in South Carolina, right, where if a prosecutor knows you, depending on who you are and what ties you have, right, depends on how criminal cases get handled. And it's not until citizens or the victims push the issue and the press picks up on it that it pigeonholes people in government to doing what they should have been doing from the daggone beginning.
And Representative Bamberg, I want to talk a little bit more about Walter Scott. We just had it's been 5 years now. You're involved in that case, and that again was a case that kind of exploded into the national limelight because of video. There was a video of Walter Scott being shot by Michael Slager, the North Charleston police officer. Do you have to basically have video these days to become a credible a case if you're a black man in the country? I mean, because he wasn't arrested until after that video came to light as well, is my understanding.
Yeah, absolutely. Video is one of the most empowering tools in the box of citizens who have been done unjustly. And it's sad to say that you need that, right? I can't imagine. I think about the things that happened before there were body cameras, before there was cell phone video. And it's the word of a victim versus the only person who's left alive, the person who took their life, right? And how much of an uphill battle that is, because it's still an uphill battle with video, right? And the Ahmaud Arbery case, you've got to remember, that video was in the hands of the prosecutors when this first happened. right? So in that particular incident, it wasn't even so much the fact it was on video that makes the difference. Now, if you look at Walter Scott, for example, you know, if you're on scene, what do you see? Well, Walter is 100 feet that way, but all the shell casings are 150 feet the other way, right? And you would like to think and believe, if you're an optimist, that at the end of the day, Michael Slager would have gotten arrested because of the physical evidence, right? Fortunately, we don't have to answer that question. I'm glad that we don't. But it makes you wonder, as a minority, you know, do I need to be on video? If I'm interacting with someone or someone's interacting with me, do I need to have citizens film my interaction to protect me, right? Am I my brother's keeper? And that's what comes to mind being a minority during these times.
And we have about a minute left, and did want to touch on a few other things. I know it's going to be tight, but yeah, we did see that body cam law come out as a result of that unfortunate shooting. But we also have some other laws on the books. There was one that the Post and Courier editorial board came out against this week. It's basically that allows a nighttime citizen's arrest of anyone who has broken in or is breaking into an outhouse with a view to plunder. I think you came up pretty hard against this on Twitter as well. A very old law, because we're talking about outhouses here, but basically it's perfectly legal if if someone's going around in the dark and someone thinks you're planning to steal something, that you can take force, you can stop, you can kill this person. The editorial board called to repeal it, and obviously we're about out of session. We're not going to be able to take this law up. But what's it like to have something like that on the books when you fear that that could be used as a defense?
Yeah, that is a top priority of mine going into next legislative session. And as a member of Judiciary Committee in the House, I'm going to push to get that off the books. That stems from a darker time in the past of South Carolina, right? It needs to go. Now, in our recent history, I'm not aware of anyone having actually used it, but the fact that it is there provides cover for someone to just take a life because they think such and such. Whatever happened to innocent until proven guilty in due process, right? We don't need citizens out killing someone. There's no coming back from it, right? And the law needs to treat it as such. And that particular law, and I'm grateful the Post and Courier editorial board agrees, that law needs to definitely come off of the books here.
Gotcha. Well, Representative Justin Bamberg, thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
South Carolinians across the state are helping each other during this ongoing pandemic. And one group of inmates is helping bring some light to some nursing home residents who have seen their daily life and activities halted. Holly Bounds Jackson has this story.
Hard time is even harder these days at South Carolina's correctional institutions. For weeks, families have not been allowed to visit their loved ones behind bars. Volunteers cannot come inside to facilitate programs. And hundreds of inmates have been locked in their rooms all day, every day to prevent the spread of COVID-19.
Some of the things that we've made are hand-drawn cards, blankets, knit caps.
But a newly created project is helping to occupy their minds. Inmates handcrafted more than 2,000 items to put in the hands of South Carolina nursing home residents who are sharing some of their same restrictions.
We typically are hustling and bustling around here with activities and, dining, fine dining, and church, and as I said, other activities, and all that has come to pretty much a halt, other than the one-on-ones we can do in the room. So, getting things like this is a real, knowing that the community's out here and providing us things like this is a real boost for our folks. I'm sure they'll all love it.
The Department of Corrections and the South Carolina Department on Aging teamed up on a project dubbed Operation Spread the Joy. The idea is to lift the spirits of nursing home residents whose everyday highlights have been taken away.
We have over 45,000 residents in nursing home facilities across the state, and during this pandemic we are unable to get in as an advocate and check on them. Family members are unable to get in, so being able to have this type of support from others to go in and have this is something you can touch. We're able to do things outside, but to be able to have something that you can touch and hold is what's so important for the residents inside.
But like so often in projects like these,
Be encouraged, no matter what's going on.
The ones giving the gifts are rewarded too.
Also being able to put a smile on people's faces more than just a blessing for us to do, even while we're here incarcerated.
And we are just excited to have the opportunity to, give back to the community in this tough time that we all experiencing together. We know how much it means to get a card or just a small gift, and what that means to us to receive something like that. So we wanted to take the opportunity to do the same for our elderly community in the assisted living facilities.
In some cases, hours were poured into a single gift. The talent among the inmates is impressive and sure to be appreciated by those missing the touch and smile of those they love.
It's good for the folks that are behind us in this facility, and it's also good for the folks that are incarcerated. It gives them a sense of purpose, and they can, they've made bad decisions, but they're making good decisions now to help other people.
For SCETV, I'm Holly Jackson.
You just gotta be strong.
Many students across the state are going without nutritional meals as they're learning from home. But ETV's Kalin Cannon has this story about how one school district is trying to restore some sense of normalcy to students.
We are operating the National School Lunch and Breakfast Program in the state of South Carolina, which is a program administered by the United States Department of Agriculture down through state agencies. Because of the COVID-19 outbreak, we were forced to shift immediately from our normal operations of the National School Lunch Program to the summer feeding model.
On a regular basis, we feed breakfast, lunch, snack, and even dinner pretty much year-round to a lot of our students. So they'll stay for after school, they participate in sports so that they can be part of evening meals. So when we were called on that Sunday to say schools are closed, we knew we had to do something to get food out to these families. And we know that we've got students that do not eat unless they're in the school.
During the school year, if you were to come to a school on a Monday and watch a student who may have not had anything to eat or very little to eat over the entire weekend, and to watch them get there first thing in the morning to eat breakfast, they're hungry. In most of our schools, especially our Title I schools, we provide breakfast, lunch, and supper during the school year when school's open. So imagine all of a sudden that disappears.
We all know that hunger is a big deal anywhere. It doesn't matter where you are, whether it's, there might be some neighborhoods that on any given day they might be able to afford their meals, but there's a lot of people out of work right now also and being furloughed.
Some school districts are operating 5 days a week, serving breakfast and lunch. Some are operating 5 days a week, serving lunch today with breakfast for tomorrow. Some districts are sometimes working Monday and Wednesday, serving enough food to get through Friday. The models are everywhere. Districts have the ability to react to the situation the best way that they could.
We knew they couldn't come in the building. We had to remodify completely what we do. So we're used to doing a hot meal served right there, and they eat in our facility. And we had to just restructure completely, make sure that we still meet those same requirements nutritionally, but package it in a way that they can eat it at home.
And it deployed pretty fast. And then we've got great partnerships with the school bus system, and they deployed extremely fast and helped us out so we could actually go out in the communities and reach these folks.
Even psychologically for the children that are trapped basically at home, just to be able to see people that they recognize, because a lot of my staff are on those buses with the bus drivers. They recognize the bus drivers. They recognize the cafeteria staff. And so they get to see people that they would ordinarily see. So it's not just about the meals. I think it's also about just socialization, that they're being told we have to keep that social distance, but they do get to see someone that they recognize from school.
Just knowing that we're there, that we're still there, and that's normal, being able to see us go to their schools, see some of the staff at their schools, kind of keeps things normal for them. It's been really rewarding just to see how everybody, the whole community has come together to help. We've had tons of volunteers come out to help us pass out these meals, which has been a huge blessing. And just to see, we've had so many people come through and just give us so much encouragement and letting us know how much they appreciate us and how much, you know, that they needed it and that they are enjoying it. So that really makes it worth the while to do it.
And it's been fantastic. We're just appreciative because, you know, they're growing boys and they'll each out of house and home if you let them. And so those things have been very, very beneficial to us.
To keep you updated and informed on South Carolina COVID-19 news throughout the week, tune into the South Carolina Lead podcast, wherever you find podcasts or on southcarolinapublicradio.org. We release 3 episodes a week, keeping you informed about what's happening in the state. For South Carolina ETV, I'm Gavin Jackson. Be well, South Carolina.